Welcome to the RSP Film Room. I'm Matt Waldman with the Rookie Scouting Portfolio, and today we have a returning guest on the show, Mr. Vad Lee. Vlad is a quarterback who played at Georgia Tech for a couple of years. He played at James Madison for a couple of years. He had career completion percentage of over 60% at James Madison and was the FCS Player of the Year for us old school folks. That we always know that as the Walter Payton Award. So Vlad, it's a pleasure to have you back on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Matt. It's fun being on your show. You guys do some great work, so thank you for having me.
Hey man, we appreciate it. Well, we're gonna get the benefit of your expertise because today we talked about getting a chance to watch a quarterback together, and Vlad asked me for some suggestions, and I just kind of gave him a list of about 4 or 5 players, and I'm from the Atlanta area, and I worked at the University of Georgia for about 10 years before I left there. So it's kind of fun. I'm not a huge Georgia fan per se, but like I certainly appreciate the school and I appreciate the team, and I enjoy watching it. So it was kind of fun that Vlad says, you know what, the guy who jumped off the screen for me that I want us to watch is Jamie Newman. Yeah. So why Jamie Newman?
This was a tough one. As a former Yellow Jacket, I didn't even know that about you, Matt. Maybe I wouldn't have joined the show, but just joking. But no, this guy, I remember watching last year when Wake Forest played UNC, the Tar Heels, and it was a fun game to watch. One in particular, I tell you, I have a buddy who plays for Wake Forest, and he plays receiver. His name is Kendall Hinton, and he actually got signed to the Denver Broncos. So he's from Durham. I'm from Durham, so go Bull City is what we'll say. But this guy, Jamie, he jumps off the screen to me because of the spin on the ball. For me as a quarterback, I watched the spin. I want to be able to see if a guy can spin it, and I'll tell you what, this dude, he can spin the rock. So it'll be fun going through these clips.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, I grew up in Atlanta, so I was a Georgia Tech basketball fan.
Okay.
So we got that, but I'll joke. I don't know. My wife might be mad that you're from Durham because she's a Chapel Hill girl.
Oh yeah.
So
okay.
she was in UNC. Were you a Duke fan at all?
You know what? I actually grew up a Tar Heel fan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if I had it my way, I would have played at UNC. But you know how recruiting goes. So.
All right. Well, you're allowed at the family dinner then, I guess, with my wife. So we're all set there. I might not be allowed occasionally with some of my friends who actually went to Duke. So
yeah,
but I'll have to cook. I don't know.
I will say, with that being said, Coach Cutcliffe is one of my good friends and someone who I admire, and he's doing a great job in Durham at the Duke program for a long time now. So
yeah, absolutely, yeah, he's a fantastic coach. So
absolutely.
That's awesome, and we'll wish the best to Kendall Hinton. I had a fun time watching him last year as well. It's certainly a fun slot guy who's tough over the middle and has some skill after the catch. He's fun, so that's very cool.
And of course, he came in as a quarterback. So he got the time as a quarterback, and he's just a freakish athlete. That's how we make him in Durham, North Carolina.
See, there you go. Well, we're going to get our chance to watch a really good one here in Jamie Newman, and we're going to start off here, it looks like, with the Utah State game.
Yeah.
Anything you want to share to set this up, or do we just want to give it a watch at first?
Yeah, I'll say let's run through it and see what happens, and then we'll go back to it.
Sounds good. All right.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Jamie is definitely he's a big play quarterback. If you want some big plays in your offense, he's going to make it happen. And what I love about this clip, I have been through so many different mechanical things, throughout my time of playing quarterback. I've changed up. I've done a lot of things. But one of the things that I absolutely love, and the reason why I chose this clip to watch, is because of his left leg. So if you continue to go right until he's getting ready to throw the ball right there, all right? Jimmy Garoppolo does a great job of keeping his body open so that all he has to do is release the ball. What Jamie does, I call it a 10 o'clock step. So I train quarterbacks online, and we have a fun time doing some things, and we go over film study, we go over mechanical stuff. And one of the things that we talk about is making sure that our foot is at 10 o'clock. You know, some quarterbacks want to step at 12 o'clock where I call it like the sniper position, where you're just like at 12 o'clock. Well, if you're at 12 o'clock, then you have to step open, you have to stride, and then you have to throw. But one thing that Jamie has done, he's taken out the step, stride, and throw, and he's already ready to release the ball in this position right here. So I think this is excellent footwork. I'm not an expert by anything, but he's already ready to throw.
Yeah, I love it. And it's great because, I mean, again, when we're talking about him, and one of the things, and I totally agree with you, I mean, it's like, it's nice to see. One thing too, it's just very smooth coming out. There's not, yeah. I mean, there's not a lot of jerkiness to the movement. His feet aren't really like high off the ground. Right, he's able to move smoothly.
Right. And that's the pocket that you have to manage. And if you could go back to when he's actually getting ready to release it, because this would be good for younger quarterbacks. Keep going right there. All right, go back just a little bit.
Let's try it one more time.
Yeah.
We'll get it a little smoother here.
All right. There. That's good.
Okay.
This is really good. There are some really good quarterbacks out there that when they throw the deep ball, they're hoping, wishing, and just hoping that it gets to the target, right? They kind of just throw it, and it's like, hey, as long as I throw it in the vicinity, my guy will catch it. But one thing to eliminate that is the knees bent and the shoulder lean. In order to throw an accurate deep ball, you must have your shoulders up. And one thing that I noticed from watching Jamie's film is his shoulders is always up, and he has a really good knack of high pointing the ball. So where his receivers are able to catch it at the highest point, not falling, not coming down. He has a great job of putting arc on the ball where his receivers are able to go and catch the ball. So they're always able to make a play. This ball right here, they're able to make a play right there.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean,
it's very smooth. That's great right there. That shoulder lean. That's what, I'm trying to drive home with these high school quarterbacks that I have. I'm really trying to hit home. It's not about your arm. It's about the proper mechanics, the shoulder lean, making sure that you get enough arc on the ball. And you cannot get arc on the ball if you don't have that lean. It's like an airplane, going up in the air.
And a good example of a player who, I remember seeing a clip exactly about the shoulder lean from an NFL coach to an NFL player. And it was a while back, but it was John Gruden telling former MVP Rich Gannon that he needed to get that shoulder lean up so that he could maximize what he did in the ball. And we knew that Rich Gannon didn't have a great arm. Like, he didn't have great velocity on his throws. He didn't throw for great distance. But in that Oakland offense, he was able to hit a lot of big plays in that 20 to 40 yard range, 25 to 40 yard range. And they talked about this in practice. They were like, get your shoulders leaned so that you have it up like that. The ball comes back down.
Yeah, you brought up an interesting point, Matt. Let's count how deep this ball is going.
Yeah.
So it ended at the 40. Let's say the 42
or the 38. I think.
Yep, 38. Sorry.
Okay.
Yep,
no problem.
And the line of scrimmage was, let's say it was the 27.
Let's start it over and see.
Yeah. We're gonna have to do some math here.
Yeah. About the 27. yeah. Or we can say. Or I mean, if we're at the 27, I'm out for my Georgia friends out there. I'll make fun that the English major is going to do the math here for the Georgia Tech guy. But but seriously, we're like 23, and it was at the 37, so we're looking at 46 yards from the line of scrimmage. And then if we do it from just the throw point, we're at 21. So 29 and 23. So we're really at 52.
Okay. So 50-yard throw?
Yeah.
Yeah, 50-yard throw. You brought up a really good deep ball is anywhere, 25. Really, I like to think is about 25 to 40 yards. Because some people think that deep balls are 50 plus, right? Well, it doesn't have to always be 50 plus. And what I love, his drop was so smooth. And, when he got to his third step in his drop and hitch, he just released it. He gave his guy a chance.
Right there.
Didn't hold the ball too long.
Yep, get rid of it early.
Yep. Look at it. All right.
Yeah, and that's a terrific point, because the earlier you get rid of it with the receiver getting that separation, the less distance you have to throw it, the more accurate you're likely to be. Because, when I look at, I'm the same way as you. Like when I chart games, I have ranges, and for me, it's like 1 to 14 yards is basically a short throw. 15 to 27 is an intermediate throw. And then I have a vertical range that I call basically 28 to 42. And then I call deep basically anything over 43 yards. And then they have like these next gen stats that NFL's come up with that show like the average accuracy over like tens of thousands of throws. And it's just common sense. The further you have to throw the ball, the lower the accuracy threshold's going to be. So get rid of it soon.
Absolutely. You got it. That's it.
So I love this point, that you made. And it's right up there, even though you might argue according to the absolute highest standard of this, like this is a very good throw because it's put up there where he only can get it. But you could also argue that if the receiver had stacked his man and continued running and tracked it over his shoulder, he probably could have caught it in stride rather than turning back to it if that was a desire to do. So,
based on just the leverage of the defenders, it looks as if they're in some type of maybe, I don't know, that looks like the corner and the receiver. So it's some type of four quarters or cover two. But anytime that you have the DB's back turn and you throw it high, they can't do anything to stop that pass. You see what I'm saying? And I don't know if he calculated that, which he probably did. But anytime the DB, if you throw it in front, then the defender has a chance to kind of smack the receiver hands down. You see what I'm saying? But if you're high, then he can't do anything with that pass because his head is turned.
That's true. And he's actually slowing down. So this has got to be by design anyway, from that standpoint of the coverage. And he's slowing down anyway. So that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Should we move on to the next one?
Yeah, let's move on.
All right. So, okay.
All right. Got to have some athleticism on here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And these are some of the plays you see a lot is where they use him, as a runner. They pull the guard, or they do they have a lead. They'll have a lead blocker on a draw. It looks like kind of a quarterback draw with a lead player.
Yep. Well, it's tough to play with 6 guys in the box when you have an athletic quarterback. You can always read one, eliminate one by the read, and this is big time stuff. When the game is on the line, crunch time, maybe your receivers aren't getting as much separation as you would like. This is what I'm excited to see. How Georgia implement him in that way. I think that. I'm not sure if they had a guy like that in a while to be able to do something like this. So this clip stood out to me, first because we want to show his athleticism, but also what he can add, the value that he can add to an offense, to any offense, really.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think the last guy Georgia had was DJ Shockley maybe was a guy that could do that for them. And when you think about their ground game and the fact that teams have to now not only account for the likes of Zamir White or a new guy like Kendall Hilton, who's like a 6'1", 230-pound freshman with like Eddie George like athletic ability back in the day. That the fact that they have to pick their poison is with Newman and the backs.
And if you go back right there with that safety missing, coaches tell running backs all the time, hey, you have to make one miss. We got them schemed up. We got them blocked right here. But it's your job to make one miss. And when you have a quarterback that can make one miss, then it makes the show even greater.
Yeah, that's for sure. And he even presses that downfield a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, he gets wide, you know, and then works his way back in. So that's nice too. I mean, that gets him the score. Very nicely done.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh man, this is great. Look at that arm.
Oh yeah.
Another high point, right? Another high point with the defender's back turned. Look, the defender's back is turned. He doesn't have a chance. He does not have a chance.
Yep. And what's especially nice about this too is, you know, he opens up to his right, looks off to his right early during the drop, and then he makes that pivot to throw off the quick drop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are hard throws for a lot of guys at this level. It seems like you watch that.
They are, I have and that's you stopped it at a great moment. Look at those shoulders right there. The ball is going. So this is what jumped off the screen for me when I was, you sent me a list of guys and I watched all of them, and then I watched Jamie and I was like, hey, this gotta be the one. He does some things that the next level guys do, and what you talked about when he was in his drop, he looked back to the left, he looked off to the left, and then he popped his feet and he was already ready to throw really fast. So he's looking to the left right now, and then now he's ready to throw. And it's very clean. It was very decisive. He knew exactly where he was going. So this tells me that he had a plan pre-snap. And as a quarterback trainer, I often tell my quarterbacks, hey, when you see press coverage, man-to-man, hey, we're picking and sticking. We're picking our guy. There's no reading involved. There's no reading involved right here. This is an opportunity for your receiver to go and beat his man.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And you look pre-snap, and we don't have the all 22, but it sure seems like we can count it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's probably one deep here.
Yeah.
So he does a nice job of just doing the customary look off, and opening and selling early is just a nice way to add on to that, way to hold the safety, even just because it's not going to be very fast. What is it? A 1, 2, 3 step drop. You don't have much time to manipulate in 3 steps.
No. And he's at the 30 and yep. Another great deep ball, another great high point.
Yeah. And opposite field too.
Yep, opposite field. Yep. And the spin on the ball is just amazing. Definitely has great touch on the ball.
How do you get a spin that pretty?
You know what? There's components to it. One, I like to always tell quarterbacks is that it's not about your arm. A lot of people think it's about the arm. So yes, there's some things that you have to do, but you first have to get fundamentally sound at your base, So that tells me that his knees were bent. He had his shoulders up, which we've seen his shoulders up. Also, that index finger has to be the last finger off the ball. I tell quarterbacks all the time, pinky up. When you get ready to throw and after you release the ball, the pinky should now be the top finger up. Once this index finger releases, now the pinky go and roll over. So it tells me that he does a great job of pinky up, and that index finger is the last finger on the ball that gives it the spin.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful ball there. That's for sure.
It's beautiful, yeah. This is that grit, that toughness, that edge, that I'm better than you type of run right here. That's what Jamie is going to bring to the Georgia's locker room. And I had to put this play on here just because it's a 7-yard run, but there's a lot of amazing stuff that happens in between the lines right there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you get a cornerback coming in here and then a safety, and the safety comes downhill and delivers a nice hard shot.
Yeah. Right
in the hip, right in the side.
Absolutely.
And then that leg drive.
To see this from a Georgia quarterback, I'll say that.
No, I don't think Jake Fromm was doing that anytime, in the recent past. That's for sure.
Yeah, so it'll be fun. It'll definitely be fun.
Absolutely. Okay, that's good stuff. All right. And again, I mean, the fact that they can use them as a weapon like this, and it seems to me like, I don't know, but I know in the NFL it seems like that it's harder sometimes to run gap plays this deep in, like in the green
Yeah.
zone. But when you have a quarterback doing it, it's kind of a slower developing play anyhow, because the defense has to account for the mesh with a potential read. So it works out. It seems like it works out better when you can have a quarterback who does this type of play.
And you got the running back is able to lead block on that. And Matt, you bring up a great point. Really, it's hard to run a lot. It's over 70% of your plays down here. It's hard to score once you get this close. But when you have a quarterback that has this ability, then it makes it that much easier for an offensive coordinator and for your team to get some points, get some touchdowns on the board.
Yeah, and let's talk about like what happens as a result of this, because then the next time they come downfield and they get the situation after they scored in the top of the second quarter here, hypothetically the defense is like, we have to watch for the run. We've already gotten bitten by that. And with the passing game being so hard in the red zone, where you have to be so quick at being able to see things, the fact that you've actually been able to run like this and you've done it on a slow developing play, doesn't that buy you as a quarterback a little extra time to process things that maybe a pocket quarterback who's not as great of a runner, that you have a guy who can play in the pocket like Newman, but who can also run, but he buys himself more time in the pocket as a result of this.
Yeah. It opens up the entire playbook now. It opens up some holes and some lanes within the defense, because now they have eyes on the quarterback instead of eyes on their man. So maybe play action, maybe a tight end running down the middle, maybe a receiver running a quick glance post route or something like that, a slant. It just opens it up even more, especially nowadays. We do a lot of RPO action anyway. So, yeah, definitely. Great point.
Okay. Yeah, man, he's strong. That's just nice to see. Even if you're not going to do that a ton in the NFL, right, it's still helpful when you decide to.
Yeah. That's my guy, Kendall Hinton.
Yeah.
So, touchdown to Kendall Hinton. I love it. Now, one thing I love about this pass, when receivers I play receiver actually my sophomore year in high school, and ended up having like 1,000 yards, and that's how I came on the scene. I was like a little puppy at that point, but
okay.
One of the things that I remember is when I was wide open, those were the hardest catches to catch. You had so many thoughts in your mind. You had so much going on. But one thing I love about this throw that Jamie Newman threw right here is he put a lot of arc on the ball, because he knew his receiver. I think he did a double move. He knew his receiver was going to be open. And when you put this much arc on the ball, it allows your receiver to adjust. And I don't know if you remember that clip that we watched of the SMU game. And my receiver was going one way, but I threw it another way. But because of the arc, he was able to adjust at the last minute. So when I see this pass, I see the ball going in the air with great velocity, great arc, and great spin on the ball.
Yeah, and you can see that he adjusted, because you look at this route and it just makes sense even without seeing the entire how do we put it, seeing it from like an all 22 perspective. We won't be able to see it, but he's breaking inside here, but you see that he ends actually veering further outside than where he was. So yeah, that's great to your point there in terms of the adjustment period there. And once again, just smooth feet, knees bent, shoulders
up.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the ball is like, it's kind of funny. It's like you could track the point where the ball just begins to change its arc at each step, going up, flattening out, still flattening out, then coming down.
Yeah, you'll be amazed at how many quarterbacks that can't get the ball to turn like that, kind of like the rainbow motion. Some quarterbacks just can't do it, and it starts with the shoulders, obviously with the foundation, the base, and with the spin. He does a great job at that. And really, a lot of his highlights are deep ball throws.
Yeah. And you need that, because it's, at some point you can't just throw back shoulders all the time or bullets all the time.
Correct.
and at this distance, you're giving them, like you said, you're giving the receiver
A chance.
yeah,
You give them a chance, and that's all receivers want.
yeah,
When you look at the grand scheme of things, all receivers, they just want a chance. You throw it to their shoes, and they just want a chance. Give them a chance, and they'll be happy. Receivers can sometimes be prima donnas, but when they have a chance at the ball, then that's a good day of work.
yeah. And I have to imagine that if you give them a chance often enough, they own anything else. They'll take accountability for everything else at that point.
Absolutely. There you go. Yes, sir.
So, do we have one more in this, or is this it?
I think there might be one more.
I think this is the replay. I think that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's it for that one.
Sweet.
But we'll move over to a few more here. Let's see. We got some of the North Carolina game. Let's take a look at this one and see what it was. And let me get the volume off of that.
Love the drop.
Yeah. It is, and I know exactly why I like this play. One is that you've got the comeback. It's at a sideline. It's against tight coverage, but it's that late turn. The fact that you make that late turn and step there, to me, that's always like a tough throw to make for a quarterback, is to make the late out or late curl or late comeback, and he just does this very nicely.
Yeah. It was very, very smooth, and very smooth. And the receiver was able to come back to the ball at the sticks, get the first down, easy completion.
For sure, and he's not deterred with that interior pressure, getting a bull rush right into his pocket. I mean, literally. I mean, that guy's almost in his lap.
Right.
Yeah. So that to me was like really nice, because again, opening up to the left, making that nice turn in rhythm back to all the way out to the right. And again, and you can see the shoulders here in contrast to the high arcing throw. This one's got to be delivered on a line. Shoulders are parallel with the ground.
Yeah. And what it tells me again is he had a plan pre-snap. If you start right here, that dropping defensive end, or outside linebacker up right there, he's in no man's lane. He's in no man's land simply because of the drop. He's probably watching the drop. And if Jamie would have just dropped back looking at the receiver to the right, then he potentially would have got under it, and it would have been resulting in a bad play. But because of his drop, watch him. He's staring at the quarterback, and now he's just in no man's land because he thinks that he's going to the left of the field when he's coming down to the bottom.
Because once he turns, you can see that his thought process was still like he's a beat late, and he's reacting. So he's going to be a beat late. If you get him to react inside, the minute he turns, he's still reacting inside.
Yep. He's late. He's done.
Yeah, that was a nice throw.
It's a dart too. Yeah.
All right, so we'll move on to the next one here. And let's see, we've got ourselves. All right, I think I know this play coming up. And this one's about, I think, targeting into a tight window.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this one I like because, again, and this is a good example, too, of like, even though it's not in the red zone or the green zone like we talked about, the fact that you can have that mesh, you can get the defense to kind of climb up and honor the run, possibility of whether it's going to be the back or Newman, and then he's able to open up that inside. And I just love the fact that he places this ball away from the oncoming safety.
Yeah, that's the only spot.
Yeah. And and again, tight pocket. He just seems very comfortable in the pocket when he's got a plan in terms of the defenders in the area. Give him some of these quick hitting plays, whether it's downfield or whether it's an RPO or whether it's a zone read type of concept or just a quick 3-step drop. Very effective at a variety of ranges and widths of the field.
Yeah, and one thing that he does on that, I'm not sure if he does that by design, but if you go to the play action, his foot right there, his left leg is already in line right there.
Yeah.
Is already in line for him to throw the ball because he have his right foot back, he have his left foot in front, as you know, quarterbacks typically stand, and he's already able to throw the ball without having to do anything with his feet. So I'm not sure if he always play actions like that or just that particular play, but he's able to ride it longer because his feet are already in line. Now when he pops up, he's ready to throw the ball. So that's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, it really is. And you see drills like this where it's like getting the hips activated, it seems like. We see a lot where it's like, all right, snapping the hips in place to get to that point.
Yeah.
Like right there.
Yeah, well, what most quarterbacks would do, especially if you're faking to the left, you'll turn your body and your shoulders. He doesn't turn his shoulders much. He's able to stay down the field, you know, and he's able to keep his eyes on his work. So that's really good, really good mechanics in terms of playing faster than the defense.
Nice. Talk about a little bit more about that front foot, because one of the things that I see often mentioned to a lot of people in the analyst community, and people I see online, they're always talking about the midline of the back foot as being kind of that rudder to point where you want to throw, but I don't hear as much about that front foot.
Yeah, for me, it's all about the front foot. Of course, all your weight has to be able to transfer from your back to your front, right? But I really like watching Jimmy Garoppolo's film. I've been studying him recently, but really the guy who to study is Aaron Rodgers. I'm fortunate enough to have a quarterback coach who has just studied Aaron Rodgers for the past 4 years. His name is Steve Wilson, and he just really have a great knack for the quarterback position, and he's taught me a lot that I know. But one thing that Jimmy Garoppolo does really well, and Aaron Rodgers and a lot of these elite guys, is they're able to throw the ball off any plane. Their feet can be at 10 o'clock, it can be 9 o'clock, it can be all out of whack, but they're still able to throw. One thing that I love, is making sure that left leg is open. When that left leg is open, you're able to throw without having to step stride and throw, or without having to pop your feet all the time. You're already in position to throw. So when you're in that position, you're just throwing it with your arms, transferring your weight, and the ball, you can play faster than the defense that way. Some quarterbacks have a problem because they have to get their bodies or their shoulders to the target in order to throw the ball. Well, that's not necessarily the case in order to throw the ball.
Yeah, and that's a great point you bring up too about, you can play faster, and then you see guys where it's like there's a difference between some guys who are like, maybe it's a mechanical thing where their feet get in the way from what they can process. Like they process it on time, they see when they need to let the ball go, but their feet just are behind them. Like I would argue that maybe Jameis Winston's a little bit on that end of the spectrum sometimes.
Yeah.
Like you watch him and it's like you can see like his mind's as sharp as a tack at what he sees, but his feet are like a step behind, and he almost looks like I'm exaggerating to a great extent about this and kind of joking, but it's like watching a cartoon character who's like got his mind in the upper half of his body, and his lower half has a different mind.
Right. Yeah, no, you see that. You even see it on the NFL level, and that's the thing. These guys. Kyler Murray, he's great. I mean, he's always ready. He's always balanced, and he's ready to throw it on any plane. Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, these guys. I'm not sure if it's a new wave of quarterbacks or what. Because the old way, or I wouldn't say the old way, but the traditional way,
sure.
is we want to be like Peyton Manning, right? That's the guy that. But now, the game has evolved. It has changed. And you got these defensive linemen who are 6'9" and running a 4.4. You have to be able to be in a position to always be ready to throw the ball, because you might not have that chance to get your feet set and to get your shoulders in line and all of that.
Yeah, and there's so many different ways to play in the position well. So obviously you're not going to copy Peyton Manning all the time, and what Peyton brings to the table is different than what other guys do. So you and it's funny, like you get a guy that I think a lot of people would say technically was very strong was Alex Smith. But when you look at his game, one thing that was fascinating to me about him is that, he's obviously a terrific quarterback to have played as long as he did in the NFL, but you see the difference between maybe good and great, on that level. And it's that processing. It's that ability, like you see him take that extra step, and it may not even be mechanical. It's more of a hesitation because he wanted to confirm what he saw open. Like he saw the leverage, and where Patrick Mahomes might go, the ball's out because I see the back of the defender in this position.
Right.
For Smith and many other quarterbacks, because it's so hard to do, it's like, let me just make sure an extra beat. Like I see it, but do I really believe that I saw it? And that's the difference between sometimes the big play. It's like those 1 to 2 plays a game that really matter. And if you can't hit those, it's kind of the difference between you helping you get your team in position to win, but you not being in position to get your team to win on that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one thing that kind of changed my mindset as a quarterback is when this is about a 15-yard throw. When I realized that I can throw 15 yards without having to have my shoulders and, my hip and step, stride, and throw into the target. When I realized that I can actually throw that ball, just how we're facing right now in this frontal position, I can throw the ball all day, 15 yards at the same amount of speed, velocity, with my feet just in beside each other, So I think a lot of times, especially analysts, obviously you'll get dinged if your feet are not in certain places. But for me, it's about making sure that you can throw and on all planes, because you never know how defensive lineman is going to attack you, and you don't want to be stuck in the mindset, I can only throw this pass if I'm in this certain position.
Yeah, and the smart NFL teams are figuring that out. Like like a great example of that guy is Carson Wentz, because if you watch Carson Wentz, and I've talked about this a lot, but like, I joke, like I've had people ask me about mechanics, because you see analysts ding that a lot. And I joke and I say, I never really watched this guy's stuff, but I've heard his like saying all the time. And he's a comedian, Larry the Cable Guy. And he's always says the phrase, get her done. And I joke that like Brett Favre had get her done mechanics. Like you look at his mechanics, and like, if you're like doing it from the whole aesthetic of like what mechanics should look like according to some player, he'd be awful. Like you ding him forever. He's 40 years old and putting the ball below his knee in a playoff game against the Saints, and he's still completing tight window throws that way. So you kind of have to look at it and go, is it comfortable? Is it repeatable? Is it going to keep the guy from getting hurt? And can he do it, and can he be accurate doing it? But to your point, like Wentz is that guy who, when, he was that traditional, he came from that traditional West Coast offense at North Dakota State, 3-step, 5-step, 7-step drops. But when you'd watch his like deep balls, he really didn't have the accuracy, like that pinpoint accuracy. And sometimes he didn't even have like the area code type accuracy. Yeah. And after his feet you could see that his feet would get kind of mixed up. And by like the third or fourth game of the second season, the Eagles were like, yeah, we've seen enough. We're gonna use pistol. We're gonna use shotgun. We know that he can throw with his feet facing downfield or in any other position that he gets in that isn't like, by the book. Yeah. And he can still throw it accurately to 25, 30 yards. So why are we going to have him drop back that long when we can do a quick hitting game with him, and he'll be really good doing that?
Right. Yeah. And that's what I love. I think I was watching the Arizona Cardinals, Cliff Kingsbury, their deal, and I think they had an all access deal. And I was watching that, and I can't remember exactly what he said, but to your point, playing to the strengths of the quarterback, that makes the world of difference, and when you have to fit a system and have to force yourself, it can be very tough. So, playing to the strengths, to your point, that's what the Eagles have done.
Let's see what we got here on this next play. I think I know what
discipline, so
this one is. Let's see.
There's that left leg.
Yeah.
So I love it. I absolutely love it. So his foot is already ready to throw the ball. Some quarterbacks, they'll still be in that kind of that sniper position, looking downfield, wait till their receiver get open, and then try to throw it.
Yeah.
He's ready.
And he's just waiting for that underneath defender to clear out, covering this slot player working outside on that little swing or wide route. And 7 comes across. Scotty Washington gets a little bump through there, but nice and low.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you throw a low ball without like putting it in the dirt like too easily? Like I noticed a guy like Trey Lance or a Donovan McNabb in the past, for people who may have not watched Trey Lance. Sometimes he had a tendency that the ball tends to arc downward on shorter throws, to the point that it's like when he's not accurate. And every quarterback has points where they're not accuracy. It's like it's kind of that thing you say, as a human being, like everyone has flaws. So it's like if you're for me, I'm stubborn. So like, for me, I know that when I'm in a bad day, there's the good side of me is I can be persistent, but the bad side of me is that I can be stubborn. So like when you look at a thrower, you look at somebody like, Donovan McNabb, and on a good day, he was really accurate. On bad moments, he put the ball in the dirt. So what happens to a quarterback when they're doing that?
Yeah, there could be a variety of things. One could be the leg extension. Anytime you don't have that left knee bent, that front knee bent, which I see a lot of quarterbacks, have that flaw. The ball has no choice but to die, to go. And what I mean by die, it goes straight down, because you're releasing. And also the point 2 is some quarterbacks release high. I had to adjust my throwing motion once I got the education, the knowledge of how to make the ball spin and how to make the ball stay in the air. In order to make the ball stay in the air, it has to be, between that 45 degree, 70. I'm not sure exactly the degrees, but it can't be super high, because if you're releasing the ball here, then your arm doesn't do anything but come straight down. So that can be some reasons, just 2 reasons that come to mind. And in order to throw it accurately, I think it's just a feel, in terms of him right here. He sees that the DB is all on his receiver. He's just trying to put it on him, put it on his body, where he can protect his receiver, but also where the ball has no choice but to go in the receiver's lap.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I love that the 2 possibilities there in terms of the leg and in terms of the high release point. And that makes sense, because you look at Trey Lance and he has a very high release point. You see that arm almost straight. And it kind of reminds me of like my favorite quarterback ever, who didn't really have that problem, but he had his knees bent, was Steve McNair. Steve McNair was my all-time favorite quarterback, and he kind of had a high release.
That's my all-time as well. That's who really? I tried to model my game off of. Yeah.
See, there you go. See, I knew why I liked you. Okay.
Yeah, I both of them, Steve McNair, and I grew up a Philly fan, so Donovan McNabb he's still like hanging up on my wall at my house, back at home at mom's house.
See, I have 2 jerseys. That's about it as a fan. I have 2 jerseys. One of them Steve McNair, and I bought a Nick Chubb jersey recently because I was a big Nick Chubb fan. But there you go. All right, so let's see. What do we have? One more here, and I believe we have a red zone play. And let's see if this is the same play. I think we have the same play. So
great minds think alike.
There you go. So speaking of McNair, there we go. We got and this would have been a play that would have made him proud too, probably on a certain level when his ability to be a powerful guy. But listen, that's some good stuff. I mean, I did look at the Clemson game, and some of the things that I noticed, and I'll just kind of leave this up here, is some of the things that I didn't get to see because, unfortunately, the person who had the YouTube channel that showed the Clemson game, their account got deleted, or terminated. So, but some of the things that, we talked about a lot of the good things here, and I think things that he can, that I wish we could have shown a little bit, but we can just kind of sum up and talk about is just more conceptual stuff that guys need to learn. I noticed that maybe, post-snap, sometimes being able to, notice the high safety and not stare down the primary read with certain looks.
I agree.
And he had good pre-snap reads, which I think most young guys who are really good do, but sometimes the post-snap's always the more difficult area. So we saw him, maybe he didn't always confirm the safety, still in the position, and he'd choose a side that wasn't going to be as productive as maybe the one-on-one that he had pre-snap. So maybe doing a little bit more to open the way he opens sometimes, open into a side, manipulating, and then finishing and firing. But that was that, and then maybe some things on the move I noticed where there was a rollout that he had where he had you often hear talking about on design rolls, throw on the third, fifth, seventh, or ninth step.
Yeah.
And he throws one on the ninth step where you see where maybe he could have anticipated it on the seventh. These are little things, things that all guys, are going to have either plays that they do this really well, and then maybe one play that they don't, or there's certain circumstances with it. But there was nothing I saw with him that was like unbelievably. He didn't have any like really egregious issues with his game that would get in the way with him developing as a pro.
Yeah, I would agree. The Wake Forest offense, just from the clips that we watch, was a vertical offense. They like to take shots, go deep. So some of the things that I look forward to seeing from his game, and maybe that's a reason why he transferred to the SEC, and for a university like Georgia, is to see some full read concepts. Some NFL type of pro style plays. 1-2-3 option. A lot of the clips that we watch were, kind of that pick and stick matchup where, hey, pre-snap, I know where I'm going with the ball. And I think he's great in those situations. It'll be really good and challenging, to be able to see him in another setting where maybe it's not so much vertical. We know that he has that in his game. Now is an opportunity to see him be able to manipulate defenders, be able to go maybe from one side to the other, full field type of plays and reads.
Yeah, and one of the things too I noticed in this, in terms of the games I watched thus far, and it's only a few, but right. He was no problem. Is that he's he's a guy that has a pretty accurate pocket clock from what I've seen. Like early pressure to the end of his 3-step drop, he anticipates the pressure that he feels, whether it's edge pressure or interior pressure. He can sidestep in a timely way and keep his feet in position to throw, and he reduces the shoulder well and slides away. He has a feel for the backside edge pressure and at least anticipate it. So that it's just going to be about ramping up. As he's playing against some of these defenders in the SEC, not like the ACC has any slouches, but like, he's going to get some opportunities to face some defenses where maybe they send 2 or 3 different people at different points, and he's got to show that advanced maneuvering.
Yeah, and he has it in his game. He's probably going to be the most athletic, guy on the field sometimes, and maybe. At the quarterback position in the SEC, so it's going to be fun to see how, they decide to use him. And I think, the sky's the limit for this guy. He's always ready to throw the ball, which I really like. I really respect and love to see a quarterback who can throw the ball on any platform and who's always putting himself in position to have success. And I think, Jamie Newman, he does that great.
Yeah, absolutely. If obviously we've got more to see of him, especially at Georgia, with some of those concepts that is going to give him a chance to get that exposure, that tape exposure for scouts to see. But I mean, can you think of, I know it's an incomplete assessment at this point until we see next year, but is there anything that, you think of teams in the NFL and you think, that'd be a nice fit for him, like just from what we've seen thus far?
Yeah, no, that's, he kind of gives me, not as big, but a Cam Newton type of vibe. So I don't know what the Carolina Panthers' new offense would be, but, I think of a Carolina Panthers type of player.
Philadelphia could be a good one, even though they just got hurt.
Yeah,
but
that's what I was going with, Carolina Panthers and Philly. Obviously, they picked up Jalen Hurts, so I can see, the similarities there as well.
Yeah, and just and they may be loaded at that point,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
yeah, but it's still you can see like the quick hitting nature. Maybe the Colts, in a sense, though they just picked up Jacob Eason,
Mhm.
and we'll see if they change their offense any. But that's a situation, and maybe even a team like Tennessee where you have a really strong ground game,
Yeah,
and you've got a guy like AJ Brown who's great in the deep, really everywhere, but
right.
you can keep adding to there, and you can kind of continue to let that offense evolve. And Ryan Tannehill and Jamie Newman kind of have some similarities in the fact that they're both decent movers in the pocket. They
Yeah,
can run when need to. They both have that deep game.
right.
They'll stand in the pocket and deliver. So there, you could see where there's some similarities with that as
I like
well.
that comparison. Yeah, I really like that comparison. That's good. Yeah.
Well, good deal. This was a lot of fun, and our time flew by. But I would love to know. I mean, for folks who want to follow you or learn more about the fact that you do some quarterback coaching, where can they find you in the work that you're doing?
Yeah. One way you can find me is the Football Network, which is the website is thefbn.org. That's where I do a lot of training with my quarterbacks. You can also simply find me on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. My Instagram tag is underscore Vad Lee two no underscore VLEE2, and my Twitter hashtag handle is underscore VL2. So try to keep it very similar. But yeah, I'm active on all of those platforms, and I'm also coming out with a book at the end of this year. It's entitled "Purpose Over Position," and I kind of got the shirt on, but this book is tailored to people who love athletics, and is made to build up leaders, not just in athletics, but if you play football, or if you're a younger guy coming up, you would definitely love it. So really excited about that.
Well, congratulations with that. Do you mind me if I ask you a question about it? In
No,
terms of
no, you
the
do.
so what inspired you to write a book, and is there anything like from your own personal experience, and I'm sure you share in the book, that kind of when it talks about that really defines purpose over position for you?
Yeah, no, great question. For me, I was a two-time All-American starting quarterback at Georgia Tech in Atlanta, Georgia. For James Madison University, where we had College Game Day come to JMU, and College Game Day doesn't just go to any campus, but they came to JMU. I've, had that crazy record of running for 275 yards and passed for 272 yards in one game versus SMU. I don't think that's been done before. I'm not sure if it still hasn't. But my career was at the pinnacle, and many considered me the number 2 guy behind Carson Wentz coming out in 2015. But that all ended due to my foot injury. Where I tore my ligament in my left foot. And for me, that was my purpose over position moment. I kind of, have a snapshot, even still to this day, of, walking off the field, looking at my teammates, seeing the referee kind of blow the whistle to keep going. It just reminded me of life, and, life continues on either with you or without you. And you have to make the most of it. So for me, that's the basis of my book, and it's not just an athletic book, but everybody has a purpose over position moment. And for me, I had to realize that though my position at as the quarterback, was taken away, my purpose as a leader remained the same. My purpose as the team captain can never be taken away. My purpose as somebody who kids look up to can never be taken away. So that inspired my book. That inspired for me to write. And for me, in terms of writing, like your other question, writing is a thing that I feel like everybody has a story to tell. And writing is something generational. I wanted to do something where my kids would be able to hold on. I can't be here forever, but maybe my kids and their kids would be able to see, would be able to connect with me in a certain way, where through my book. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really excited about it, and I admire anybody who writes because it takes a lot. This has been probably a 4-year project, and finally we're getting to the point where it's ready to roll. So,
Well, congratulations on that, because that's quite an accomplishment. And it can't be underscored more just how valuable having generational, some transference of generational
yes,
information or value that
yeah,
comes in stories. It's not just about finance, it's about stories, and it's about heritage, and it's about family, and those are things that that oftentimes can be missing for people.
yeah, absolutely. And we live our life sometimes wondering and wishing that we knew why certain things were that way, or just if only I could talk to my great grandfather who I never met. Maybe by his book, though, if he wrote a book, maybe I can get some insight of his life and be like, oh, I think like that too, or oh, that's pretty cool. So I I'm actually writing multiple books. My wife and I are coming out with a children's book as well. That's a diversity book, really tailored to everything that's going on in the world today. And it's inspired by my daughter. She thinks that everybody is her friend, especially when she see another little person, and she'll say, "That's my friend," and that's the title of the book. It's called "That's My Friend." So that's still still in the illustration part, but we're excited about that as well. I'm in this writing mode, I guess. For me, I was just playing in the XFL until that got kind of, that kind of got cut short because of the coronavirus. So for me, that passion of football will always be there. But as an athlete, one thing that's guaranteed about the game is is that you'll be an ex-athlete one day. So for me, it's trying to channel that passion and that energy into another space that I'm really passionate about, and I found that it comes in writing.
That's awesome, and it's great too, because I mean, you're gonna, not only is you're passing along wisdom and experience to family members, but just to people in general, anyone who buys your book. And there are a lot of people out there from all walks of life who, in their early 20s, or it could be their 30s, when they think they've done everything they were supposed to do,
Yeah.
and then life hits them in a way that they didn't expect. Is
Yeah.
that you kind of, it seems to me that what you're saying too is, listen, if you have a purpose and you develop a purpose, not only does it help other people, but it's also going to help you, because you're undoubtedly going to feel the emotions. I mean, we're not robots. You're going to be depressed at
Yeah.
endings. You're going to be sad about what could have been. You're going to think about all those things. But if you give your mind something to focus on and do, and something that you can accomplish in steps, you can at least not allow that emotion to totally get you off track on a level. Because I'm sure you had days, you had days where you were crying, or you
Oh,
were
yeah.
depressed for, but there's a point where you kind of had to go, okay, now I got to get to work, I got to do
Yeah.
something.
Well, I can almost guarantee that every athlete, especially, go through it. And I know every people in life, but we're talking about football players and athletes. Every athlete goes through it. Whether you played 5 years in NFL, 10 years, even the greats who retire, they're in tears. Why are they in tears? Not because this is just a happy moment for them, but because they have to move on, and without the game. So we all have a greater purpose than the game of football. And I go into talking. I talk a lot about that in my book. But not just football. We all have a greater purpose in anything that we do in life. But that position can lead to the purpose. So, it's no way saying that purpose over position, like your position doesn't matter. It's not saying that. But what it is saying is that your purpose should always kind of be that umbrella that covers the position that you're currently in right now.
Yeah, it's the foundation,
Yeah,
you know,
that's
and that makes total sense. I mean, I've talked a lot about that. I wanted to be a musician. I wanted to be a jazz musician, and I went to the University of Miami, and I used to, my roommate was a my roommate ended up working with Jermaine Dupri. He wrote songs with Willie Nelson. He discovered Matchbox 20. He played in the band Collective Soul. And like, I knew lots of guys who played with folks ranging from Stevie Wonder and Herbie Hancock to all sorts of folks. And I didn't have that kind of ability, you know? And it was like, I remember leaving and thinking, and just, you know, it took me, I had 15 years worth of dreams that I was still at that school, you know, because it took time, you know.
Who you telling? There's some days, Matt, I wake up still thinking that my phone is gonna ring from an NFL, team or some professional team. And one thing I realized is that I will never stop dreaming. I don't know where these dreams are gonna lead to, but I know that they'll lead to my purpose, ultimately. But sometimes it can be, hard to look at your position and say, man, I was supposed to be this, I'm only doing this. I was supposed to be here in life. I was supposed to be there in life. For me, I could say that, hey, my position right now, I was supposed to be in the NFL. I can say, hey, if I didn't get hurt, I would have had my shot. I would have had my opportunity. Those are positional things, but I had this, not had to, I'm continually to shift my mind into a purposeful mindset and say, hey, that injury, hey, James Madison won the national championship next year. The guy who was behind me became the national champion. Maybe that time that I was hurt, those 6-7 games that he was able to play, maybe it got him prepared to lead JMU to the national championship. His name is Brian Short. He's one of JMU's greats, all-time greats. And, for me personally, I can look at that and say, man, that sucks. I wanted to be the guy,
Right.
But, that's a positional mindset. But, when we shift to that purpose mindset, and I go into that within the book, and I really think it's a necessary message for every athlete that are out there. And I'm big into my faith, and and I believe, I add that part in there as well for those who want to access that as well.
And and I appreciate you being revealing about that and sharing where you are with that, because it's good, because you're in that point too where, I mean, I have no way of knowing, from a standpoint personally, what it would be like to be an elite athlete like you were, and that you still are, I think, in terms of what you do. But it's like, to be at that point where it's like part of it is waiting for an opportunity and being prepared for an opportunity, but at the same time preparing for things that are outside those potential opportunities. And and I've been there, whether, and I can say that it's fascinating, because you will take what you've done outside of this, and if it ends up being football, it'll apply to football for you. And it's all going to apply. I mean, like, the people who are on here know I talk about music a lot, and I use a lot of bridges between music and quarterbacking, actually, and there are people who are like, I play, and that makes total sense to me. So it's great. Like, so it's the same thing. And I'm excited for you and where you're going with this. And I hope that, certainly, we'll get a link when the book's out, so we can promote it on the website and share that. Well, absolutely. So, listen, this was great, and we appreciate Vlad for coming on. And, of course, you can find my work at mattwaldmanrsp.com. And you guys have a terrific week.
Sir, see you.
All right, let me